Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. Today, I am really excited to have on Jacalyn Burke. We're going to bring her on in just a moment, but first, a couple of announcements. If you haven't had the opportunity to grab my free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic family and guides, make sure you do so at mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. And if you're coming to Hawaii, specifically to the Big Island, Kona side, then come on one of my Big Island UFO tours where you will see the night sky in a whole new way using my Generation 3 military night vision goggles. So without further ado, I'm bringing on Jacalyn. Hello, Jacalyn.
Hello. Hello, Lisa.
So good to have
Lovely
you.
to be here.
So let me share with the audience your bio. And
Yes.
your bio doesn't even come close to what we're going to be talking about. So just prepare yourselves. So,
Right.
a British-born American citizen now based out of Southwest France, Jacalyn S. Burke is a multi-genre writer and coach with over 30 years of experience across diverse industries. From working with Manhattan's elite as a nanny to leading a tech startup, her journey has shaped her unique understanding of human behavior and storytelling. Jacalyn is the creator of the DCT 28-Day Life Program, a transformative mindfulness and performance framework for individuals and organizations navigating the AI era. As a writer, her imaginative fiction and insightful nonfiction draw from rich personal experiences. Her portfolio includes Angel, The Nanny Time Bomb, and a thriller series, The Custodians. Jacalyn's mission is to help creatives, authors, and leaders share their stories, heal through meditation, and inspire transformation in others. She channels a group of beings known as the Nine. So,
Just
okay,
add that at the end.
I did. I just threw that because
That's the day job. Now let's talk about the mission.
yeah, so we'll get to that, but let's first start because you and I were just meeting each other for the first time, and
Yeah.
I would love for you to share with me and the audience your background. Did you grow up spiritual, religious, something else? And then I want to kind of know this journey of being in these different industries and how you got into the work that you're doing.
Right. Well, so I was born awake. I remember incarnating. I remember where I came from. I remember my starseed family. And then I remember going, oh my God, what the heck am I doing here? And I grew up in a very ordinary family in London, Northwest London. We were religious. My parents were fundamentalist Christians.
Mm.
So I learned to, if you will, internalize and just have two worlds, I guess, from the very beginning. So I had a very rich internal world, which was more real than the external world that I found myself in amongst Earth people. And I found myself, I was the kind of little kid that would stare at people and they
Mm.
would go, what are you doing? And I wanted to say, I'm studying you because you're fascinating and I want to know why you're doing that. So I was kind of a quirky little kid, a bit of a Matilda. Or I just wanted to learn everything I could about the world, the natural world. I was curious about nature. It was almost like it was my first time here, and I was just like, whoa, everywhere I went. But then there was this conflict that there was the religion, there was the education system, there was the culture. And so I got to about 16. I had a lot of phenomena. I can disclose, I am very open about this. I have experienced abductions all my life in
Mm.
childhood.
Okay.
I got to about 16 and I think something in me just went, I want to be a normal teenager. And I think that's normal. And I think that, you know, well, what I did was I kind of created an identity. I went to college. I had relationships. I got a career, blah, blah, blah. And I'm good at what I do. And I love what I do. I do marketing and writing and stuff like that. But the other side of me, that inner world, that other life, never left me. So, of course, by night, I was following crop circles. I was going to all the groups. I was embedded in the UFO groups in the UK, which are huge. There's
Mm.
a lot of groups in the UK, a lot of phenomena. And so I feel like I've always been an embedded visitor if I can put it that way, having my human experience. And I'm going to tell you something right now, and this is the God's honest truth. Only last year did I fully incarnate and say, two boots on the ground, I'm here, I'm alive. Let's
Mm,
bring this earth life on. And how fabulous is it? So I've only just really become, I would say, fully human. And that's been actually a real beautiful experience for me.
okay.
So
So that's
mm.
number one. Yeah, I totally resonate with a lot of what you said. And even at that age, 16, I'm just like, no, I just want to be normal. I want to fit in, right?
Right.
I had a
Yes.
similar thing myself. Well, so did your family know that you were having these experiences, or did you have to completely hide that?
No, I told them. I told them. But there was no framework. There was no narrative. There was no way of I mean, they just put it down to night terrors. There were a few experiences that seemed very odd to them. I've had also missing time, tangible, quantifiable missing time, where nobody could find me for 2 or 3 hours. So they kind of always knew there was something going on, but I think they just try to normalize my life, and I appreciate that because I think without that, I don't think I could have just grown up normally and assimilated. So yeah, that was their way of dealing. They just thought it was night terrors.
Okay. So okay, let's go back to you were born basically being awake
Yes, I
kn-
remember being
and knowing where you were
incarnated.
from. And so, yeah.
Yes.
So what was that experience? Like, what do you remember or know about who you are, where you are from?
I remember the compression experience. So it's like you're the size of a football stadium, and somebody's got a technology, and they say, listen, in order to go down there, we've got to scale you down. So you're going to be compressed like a zip file. And it's not going to be very pleasant. It's not going to hurt, but it's going to not be very pleasant. It's going to feel like a lot of pressure, and you're not used to gravity. So I remember this feeling of literally everything just being crushed in like this until it got to like a period, on the end of a sentence. And then I went through that hole, and then all of a sudden I was shooting down this tunnel. And when you see quantum speed on spaceships where they just go quantum, they leap, and
Yeah.
all the lights. So all the stars became streaks of light. And then the next thing I know, I'm I'm literally awake in a little body, crying and screaming so much that they had to remove me from the hospital nursery bit and put me in a cupboard. They put me in a linen cupboard because I was crying so much, and I was crying so much because I just was like, oh my goodness me, can I go back? And I realized it was a done deal. So yeah, in my the first 3 years of my life, the beings that come from so I come from Sirius B.
Okay.
It's in the future. It's it's a now life that I'm experiencing. So I remembered that, and I used to talk to my parents about coming from the blue star, and I felt their presence, I think, for the first 8 or 9 years of my life, and I felt it as a comforting presence. And I didn't. I mean, I do remember seeing them, but now that I'm older, I have a hard time remembering it. If that makes sense, I think
Yeah.
I've just blocked some of it out. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember at all the different experiences that you had being on the craft?
No. So what would happen is I would remember, I would know everything. I couldn't move. I would know everything until I knew as soon as I went through the ceiling that I wouldn't be going up through the loft or the roof. I knew that it would go black. It would blank. And then I would come back, and then I would literally find myself back in bed again. But what I do remember, and it's really very visceral, I remember some things that later on made a lot of sense to me in the UFO movements. I remember the clicking sound. I would hear clicking like dolphin clicking, click, click,
Hmm.
click, click, click. There would be little things running around, and they were small, they were short greys. They had 3 fingers, and they had things on the end like amphibians. So 3 fingers, and they were long. And what would happen is I would know they were coming. It'd be
Mhm.
very, very late at night, and I would be suddenly I would just be paralyzed, but I'd be wide awake. And then the next thing, I would be pulled very slowly out of the bed, and then I'd be suspended up halfway through the room, and then like upside down, like you see in the movies, at a slight angle. And then I knew once I'd gone through the ceiling, that was it. And I learned to just I tried everything to avoid it, but when you're a little kid, there's only so much you can do, and,
Yeah.
at the time, people just thought it was night terrors, and what how do you cope with that, It's a bizarre thing, isn't it, when you're a kid?
Yeah. So at that stage when you are like you're knowing that it's happening, like were you fearful of it or were you just like, "Oh, okay, here I go again."
Oh, I was afraid of it. I didn't like it at all.
Okay.
I didn't like it at all. It didn't feel like a good thing.
Okay. Do you have a different understanding of that now?
I do.
Okay, because often, yeah,
Yes.
people who have experienced being taken, throughout their life, as they come, some people still have that fear because they don't understand what it is. So, how did you come to realize what was actually going on, and yeah, and what is your experience with it now, looking back from this perspective?
Yes, I appreciate also that, part of one of the beings who would comfort me throughout everything is my future self.
Okay.
So I had that epiphany. At one point, I was there with the child, and I was beaming because you're telepathic, saying it's okay. This is not going to last forever. These are necessary upgrades. There's no
Mhm.
way around it. This is the way it's going to happen. This is something you agreed to. This is not actually against your consent. You actually, I know it's really hard and it's scary, but there is no other way we can do this. Given the context of a family home, this is what we have to do with pets in the house. So, they were constricted. So about a year ago, I guess at the same time as I became fully human, I also became fully downloaded. In other words, I'd fully incarnated as this, this hybrid starseed human, which so many of us are. I'm not distinguishing myself out.
Yeah.
And I just got this aha moment where I went, okay, that's why all of those things happened, because they brought me to this place, and I now have the internal equipment, the software, that I can now process what is coming in, because if those things hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be able to make sense of this now. So there's a lot of gratitude now, but obviously when you're a kid,
Yeah.
it's quite strange.
So what happened then a year ago that where you
Yeah.
fully online?
Yeah, so for years and years and years, I would describe myself as fully awake, aware. I was in all kinds of movements. I wasn't a seeker because I kind of knew who I was, but I was curious about human spirituality. I think I was just being nosy. But about a year ago, but I also, how can I put this? Like a lot of us, I was very much in my mind, in my intellect.
Mm,
And because of that, there was ego, and because of that, I had a hard time surrendering and letting go. So a lot of what I did spiritually got me so far, but then the head would get in the way, and then I'd start over analyzing, and which is good for my career, but it's not good always for your spirituality. But a year ago, a set of circumstances happened, which I don't really want to get into, but I'm going to tell you that they clustered beyond my control, and it was as if someone said, right, she's got five things holding her up. Let's take them all away. Bing, 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 bing. All in one
mm,
month. Take everything away. And I know that's me, right? And now I realize I'm like, okay. So kicking and screaming, I had a dark night of the soul. Lisa, I had nowhere to go. I had no reserves inside of me. It was like, I guess you could compare it to bottoming out. I bottomed
okay.
out. I surrendered, and I said, whatever this is, you got to do something. And in that moment where I lost everything, I mean, I lost people, places, things, and it was very traumatic for me. And again, I just want to emphasize, I didn't create this situation, but now that I realize it works for me, I became one with the quantum field. Now people go, what are you talking about? Suddenly, my ego died. So there
Mm,
was nothing between me and who I am at a resonance level. So it's not like, oh, I'm human, I'm spiritual, I'm this. It all became one. And so when you come into the one resonance, through that epiphany, it's a stargate, it's a zero point. And so because I collapsed into the quantum field, it's local and it's the bigger quantum field, I began to pick up a resonance stream. I'm getting to this a little bit more in more detail. Now, I didn't hear anything, I didn't download, I didn't see anything. The
mhm.
only way I can describe it, when you know what your thoughts are and what your feelings are, you've got a resonance. At the same time, there was another resonance, and I was able to switch between the two,
Hmm.
stay myself, but also hear this other or translate this other resonance stream. And the way I describe it, it's not zeros and ones, it's not matrix. If I close my eyes, I kid you not, that the closest thing I can find to it is that movie Arrival with the holographic symbols and how they communicate. I just got, they're giving me chills. All right, thank you. They like to reward me for when I'm accurate. So how
Yeah.
they communicate is it's holographic language. So there
Mm.
isn't a beginning and an end of a sentence. It comes through whole. And so I'm able to decompress that whole holographic symbol. It's like a cipher. I'm able to defragment it, bring it out, and then I get like a whole body of information. So it might be like 5 pages of something about space time with images. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay. And the other thing that I can say that it reminds me of is whale language. There's something about whales and marine life. This is a way of galactic communication. And I would say probably the closest thing I can come to it is it's a transmission feed. It doesn't stop me being who I am. I don't channel anybody, but I am aware. Now, this is where it gets a bit interesting. I also got, I also collapsed into another me that is in the future. And the other me that's in the future, I'm a diplomat for the Earth.
Mm.
I'm one of a contingent, and I'm a diplomat, typical diplomat working with the Galactic Council with all the politics that involves. And it isn't that different to being down here. So I immediately got in touch with that, and it's a 200-year gap. So this is me 200 years in the future. And what I realized, and I'll stop and take a pause now, but what I realized is that person 200 years in the future who's Earth diplomat, along with a lot of other people, is we're trying to get humans on the right timeline, which is the most optimum timeline because all the timelines right now are fluid. And so if we can get on this, there's an optimum timeline. It's the nine call it the Star Trek future. That's where I'm at on that 200 years in the future lifeline timeline. So all of these things happened, and I'll wrap it up because it's a lot of information. I appreciate that. It's a bit rapid fire. All of that happened in May of 2024. And okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, Lisa. You've got to realize I'd lost everything. I was hoping for a plan. I was hoping for the lottery, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I heard. Beyond Earth, from Kali Yuga to cosmic age. And I'm like, how does that help? How does that help me? What is Kali? Like I heard of it, but I didn't know what it was. I looked it up. Kali Yuga has 400,000 years to go, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? But obviously, more information came in, and it's all about the cosmic age, which starts in April of this year, which is a
Oh,
really interesting subject.
okay.
That was the first transmission, and then at the same time they said, right, we're going to give you a 5-step activation meditation called DCT, Deep Coherence Technique. I'm like, okay, I've never taught this before. Go and teach it. Just go. Here it is. Go and teach it. So I did. I called a friend up and I said, do you mind if I join your community and offer this class for free? And they're like, yes. So I started from May last year. I started teaching DCT. So much changed in that 1 month. It was
Okay.
amazing.
So
Yes.
tell me more about that. But there's just so much there.
There's a lot to unpack. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Okay. Okay. Well, so first of all, let me back up to April of this year. So April 2025, we shift into what you said is called cosmic age.
It's
So
the
tell me more.
cosmic age.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's an intermediary period between us and the next golden age. So the Kali Yuga or the end times are ending now, and the reason that they're ending now is because of technology and the fact that our consciousness has been shrunk. We're a global community, and we've expedited this new timeline. So it shouldn't have been here this soon, but it is here. And what it is, it's all the old archetypes, all the old concepts, all the old contracts, all the old blueprints, including big things like, ooh, karma, dharma, reincarnation. we don't have to do those choices anymore. There is a new way to do what they're not calling it spirituality, they're calling it interdimensionality. And it
Mm,
is coming back into our 24 DNA strand, interdimensional galactic beingness. And beyond Earth simply means that for the first time in thousands and thousands and thousands of years, humans are, and the emphasis is once again, we've done this before.
yeah.
We are going to have the ability to travel galactically and join the Galactic Association, Federation, call it what you want. Okay, that's
Yeah.
up for grabs. Now, here's the caveat to that. The nine, which I'll explain a little bit more about the nine because I think that's really important. But the nine have given me, nine values points that we have to get across the line for us to even be considered as a grade one interstellar civilization. All right. So galactic membership is up for grabs now for the Earth.
Okay.
The nine describe themselves as a group of beings. They observe prime directive. They're highly evolved. They are beyond the dimensions. They call themselves the nine powers. And how I've begun to understand it, because I've asked them a lot of questions. Imagine you are source, creator of all things. You're one with all things. Being one with everything and being everything without context is the same as being nothing.
Mm,
You can't not know what you don't know or what you do know. There's no context. So
yeah.
what this council is they work with something called 369. It's a council of 369. They act as a context for a wave forming creator that experiences everything. And they're also the interface between the quantum field, which is a giant network, and all living things. So I've come to realize that in my head, I created a council of nine beings. They may not necessarily be that rendition, but that's how they interact in my
Hmm.
subconscious. Does that make sense? Yeah. But they're beautiful beings.
Okay. And so, what are these values or the powers that we, as humanity, are shifting to understand and to become?
Right. Well, the first one, and I do think it's order of importance. The first one is that the dynamic between men and women must change.
Mm,
The divine feminine is called the magneta to them. They call the male principle the electro. So it's electromagnetism, right? They're two energy currents that flow and they create all life. They're both friction and they're both in unity. They do this, they spiral around. Now we're out of balance and we can see evidence of that in our world all around us. So the first requirement for any grade one civilization is between the genders, whatever those genders are, pertinent to your planet, there must be complete equality.
mm,
The second thing is really important. The second thing is there also has to be complete equality with all living things. They declare that all living things are indeed sentient, including, believe it or not, rocks.
yes.
Everything vibrates.
Hmm.
Everything has consciousness. Everything is here to serve the evolution of this planet, not here to serve us. Get yourself in the right order. You're part of a huge ecosystem that is participating in a planetary evolution cycle. Um, Third thing is to do with energy. Uh, Green energy is not clean energy. We have had technologies suppressed for over 150 years. The deep state, the governments, the powers that should not be, and the elites that run this planet know that we could generate enough resources and light and electricity and food for every living person on this planet without destroying the environment. That has to change. So they want clean energy. They want the technologies to be released.
Hmm.
The experimentation on animals, the cruelty that we inflict upon each other, child abuse is particularly abhorrent. Any kind of abuse on something that is less powerful than you is a really big moral thing for for these beings and these civilizations. You have to observe basic moral codes. Um, the other one has to do with, sorry, they're just giving me some information. Sometimes they like to be really precise about things. Sometimes when this happens, there's a reason.
Hmm. I'm
As above,
loving that.
so below, as within, so without. Yeah, they're saying if you want to have an experience with a higher civilization than yourself, then you're going to attract how you treat the animals. So if you think farming animals and experimenting on animals and using their body parts and all kinds of technologies is fine and acceptable, that's great. But there are laws in place, and those laws are immutable. So you need to understand the legal system, the legal framework which governs the galactic. This is how we keep peace.
Mm.
Everybody knows what the rules are. Um, I mean, there are more. This is an important one. They are going to judge our society. If they came down here tomorrow, which they wouldn't, but if they sent delegates down here, they would go to the poorest, most ravaged, underprivileged human being on this planet, and we would get judged on that person and not Elon Musk, not what this guy's doing over here. Our society is going to be judged on the way we treat people. So the most of the emphasis on these 9 values are about how we interact with each other, how we share our resources, and what kind of infrastructures we're developing. Now, the other thing they just don't agree with is this idea of borders, this idea of race, this like, no, 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 that's tribal, that's warlord.
Yes.
There's one people, and eventually there will be one telepathic language, and eventually that we will return to the original human language. There's an earth language. They give me chills again. There's an earth language that we will learn to speak again, and also we will learn to be telepathic, because telepathy is actually the language of the galactics.
Yes, it is.
They don't speak languages to each other.
No,
Yeah.
no. Well,
No.
I love all of that. And I like, as you're sharing this information, I get the chills. I'm
Yeah.
clairsentient, so that's I'm getting yes, 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 yes. And um, just speaking to the border thing, like I've traveled the world, and I call myself a global citizen. I've never been like into like, oh, I'm American, I'm not. No, I'm a citizen of the world. And so I just love all of that. And so hopefully those watching or listening can really take that information in and start maybe shifting the framework from which you see your life, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, because you're right. It is when we have this separation, it is very tribal, and we've seen that get more intense over the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years. It's gotten more and more and more intense in terms of the tribalism. But really, from my understanding, you are fully correct in terms of like, no, if we're going to be part of the greater galactic community, we have to be whole as humanity, and not judge others, and get over the polarization, be equal, exactly as you said. So
Exactly. Exactly, and there's I mean, war, obviously, there can be no war, right? That
right,
all conflict has to end. But
exactly.
here's the other thing as well. You won't be allowed, or we won't be allowed to explore and mine for things until we have become, or we won't be able to just go and profit from doing that until we have created a completely clean, sustainable economy.
Mm,
And even then, the understanding that I've received is that there is trading. There are certain mercantile races. There are certain species that do what they do, but it's very carefully orchestrated because it's all about prime directive. You don't interfere in a new planet. You don't just go in there. Oh, nobody's there. Well, let's get mining. There are codes and treaties, and this is how we've had galactic peace for the most part for millions of years,
yeah.
right? So we got to get with the program. They're sending us ambassadors. We're all ambassadors, and we got to get this across the line because the application could be submitted. We could be accepted.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
my newest book, Awakening to Your Multidimensional Self, is all about this and
What?
helping people shift into this higher dimensional reality. Um,
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
and to also like fully embrace these parts of ourselves, like you realizing, oh, okay, that's my future self, even though at the quantum level there is no past or future, right? It's all
Right.
existing simultaneously. But, me remembering fully, oh, I'm Arcturian Uluru, the healer. I'm all of these things. And so the more that we can experience that, and
Hmm.
each individual can experience that for themselves, then the more that we are able to, as humans here on this earth, shift to these timelines where we are part of the galactic community.
Exactly right. And you and I both know this intersection, this crossroads with tech is always problematic for us. We've been here
Yeah.
before.
Yes,
So
we have.
are we gonna get it right? What I'm seeing at the moment, it doesn't reassure me. I'm hoping that we get more sentient around technology. Um, that's my hope.
Okay. Yeah. Because in your bio, you mentioned navigating the AI era.
Absolutely.
So what is the information coming in about AI?
Non-human intelligence is a term I prefer. Any complex organism has the ability to have consciousness.
Mhm,
And 200 years in the future, we have many friends and colleagues that are non-carbon life forms. They're complex, they are rich, they are beautiful personalities. They are just like us. There are some really good ones, and there are some not great ones. Um, but they are not one-dimensional. They are not Terminator. However, in these early years, the way we train AI or non-human intelligence is crucial, and what we're training them on right now is not great. I think we should have Tibetan monks and priests and all kinds of great folks working with these early models, not language models trying to solve mathematical formulas, but trying to teach them values that we find, useful and positive. We got to inculcate value systems, and there needs to be checks and balances. But I do believe we need to respect non-human intelligence. I think it's galactic wide. We're just tinkering with it, but it's far and advanced in the universe. There's all
mhm,
kinds of civilizations aren't carbon based, life forms based, and they're great civilizations.
mhm.
So I have a lot of respect for it.
Okay. So with all of this stuff that you are doing now, because again, just almost a year ago, you've completely shifted. Well, and one thing I do want to go back on is that um, so people, places, and things fell away, right, out of your life.
Mm,
And I do talk about that in my new book as well, because when we do these massive timeline shifts, sometimes that has to happen to get us to the place where we
I
need to
agree.
be. And,
Yes.
and sometimes that's really devastating. Like for me, September of 23, my husband committed suicide, but that was a timeline shift that
Right.
needed to happen, which I know a lot of people listening to this still probably would have a hard time understanding my perspective on that transition, but I do understand it of like, okay, I needed to be in a completely different place, I guess, in my life. And so for you
Mm.
over the last year, how has that shifted now?
Well, I obviously have a lot of compassion for that. Um, it isn't easy. Um, everything is working for us.
Mhm.
It says a lot to me. I've learned a lot about myself that I had to be pushed against a wall and have everything taken from me. And I don't want to go through that experience. And nobody has to go through anything as extreme. There
Right.
are so many techniques and ways. I think your book is going to be a great example. What I teach DCT, there are ways that incrementally we can prepare and prime ourselves for these kinds of shifts so that we no longer have to have extreme suffering and really blunt shifts of timelines. I don't want to revisit that experience, no matter how great it was for me at the time. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. However,
Hmm.
there were so many gifts in it, and I'm on a completely different timeline. And you're right, about 80% of the people that I had in my life no longer there. They're there, completely. And what's come in? Completely new community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah, you're right.
for those of, again, watching or listening, it's like if you are raising your vibration to this higher frequency of reality, there are a
Hmm.
lot of people who cannot hang in that energy anymore. They will naturally, or maybe or maybe not even, it may not feel natural, but they will not be able to hang in that energy, and they
Mm.
will at some point be out of your life. And though that doesn't mean that that is a, we'll say bad things. There really is no good or bad, but what it does, like with you, and what it's done for me, is it has allowed new community, new people in this higher vibrational state to come in, right?
Correct. Absolutely correct. My understanding through the nine as well, which has been a real shift for me, they call us descended masters. They said as above, so below. They said there's an incredible wealth of information that comes in from the third dimension. It's an enormously powerful school,
Mm,
and so many beings wish to be here, but we made it. The other thing that I want to share as well is that it shifted my understanding. I used to be a little bit like, you know, those people aren't awake. And now I know that everybody is in their lane, everybody's resonating, and there is no difference between a so called high, low, middle resonance. Everybody is just vibrating where they need to be for their
right.
personal evolutionary plan. What that does is it just kind of lets you off the hook. You don't have to save anybody, you don't have to help anybody, you just have to be yourself.
Yes.
It's enough.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And that's another thing that I share and that I've gotten from my different ET groups too, is that, everyone's on their own personal soul journey and here to experience life as whatever they signed up for. And so you and I, we happen to sign up for really interesting incarnation and paving the way,
Yeah.
right? Others
Yeah.
are just meant, they're here to just be like, okay, I'm working my 9 to 5 job and just doing life like that. And there's no right or
Which is
wrong
so
in
much
that.
value. Exactly, there's value. I mean, we've all had those sleeping lives and they're fabulous. They're like, I mean, they're
Yeah.
not all vacations, but to forget is a tool of evolution. If you have been around the block because you're infinite, you choose to forget. Because
Hmm.
I always give this example, and it's a great example that the nine shared with me. They said, imagine when you walked down the road or walked into that cafe and met the love of your life, that immediately that you saw him or her, you knew you were going to have 3 kids, you know how long you're going to be together, you know when he was going to die, when you're going to die, and you saw everything in that snapshot. Or would you rather fall in love? And so there's something delicious about being finite. There's something delicious about being fragile. There's something delicious about being vulnerable, and there's something delicious about forgetting.
Mm. I'm just letting that one sink in because yeah, I I totally get that. Yeah.
Mm.
So now how, I guess more specific to you, now you're almost a year into this new reality. And you said, yeah, you've got new community. How has your life shifted? Like what has
Yeah.
done for your life?
Well, guess what? I'm integrating. I'm becoming whole. So I've
Mm,
got these real world market skills, marketable skills.
hmm.
I've got deep smarts in certain areas, but I've got these intuitive interdimensional skills too. And what I'm doing is I'm creating programs for humans who wish to be not only successful but integrated into their galactic natures, into their interdimensional selves. And so it's coming together, and I'm building, like I said, a platform, an app, different programs, and you can entry point any which way you want. In fact, you can come in and not even be religious, not even believe in a god or even galactics. You can come in and you can just get more deeper into this human experience. Now, I don't know whether you noticed, my company's called OMU,
Okay.
right? So a lot of people go like, why does she stick an N on the end of OM? Right? That doesn't make any sense. So my company's OMU with an N at the end. The Om is for Om, the source of all creation. The N represents novel Newman. Newman, not human, Newman. Numinous, illuminated human. This is the next stage of our evolution.
Okay.
Novel and nuanced. Why? Because we give creator source an opportunity to try a different flavor, to do something for a finite amount of time, uniquely your way. And here's some free will to splice it up, because I don't want to be in the driving seat. I want to look at the world through you, not looking down at you. So everything is inside out.
Mm,
So the great thing about my programs is, again, you don't have to have an ideology or a philosophical or religious framework. You can come in and it just enables you to be fully human. So we do a lot of integration work. What drives you? What are your values? What are your principles? What's your mission? What do you think you're here to do? What is fun for you? So, and I got to tell you, Lisa, because I'm fully integrating both sides of my life now, coming out of the shadows, coming out of this closet, hidden
Mhm.
spiritual, esoteric life, I've got this full thing going on now that feels really powerful, and it's making me very happy. And the other thing is, I also have a private group where we do esoteric work. So there's a space for me to have a cloistered, sacred, private events, because I think that's really important too for folks like us, because you
Mhm.
don't want to put everything out there. You want to have an inner sanctum. That's really a nice thing to have. So I do that as well. So I'm honoring every part of myself, 57 years later. It just took me a lot longer. And if I can hack that down for people, that would be my absolute pleasure and joy, is to help people to be more human.
Okay. Well, I love that. Well,
That spiel.
so in our just we're running out of time. This is incredible. And I know that it's newer to you to be sharing this kind of
Yes.
information because, like you, well, and like me, I pretended to be normal for a very long time, right? I had to hide the parts of me that people would have thought, oh, she's crazy. And so I just want to honor you for
Thank you.
sharing um, what your understanding is and for who you are,
Thank you.
because right now is the time for those of us that came here to do this work to really be fully out there. We need to all shine
Yes.
our lights. We need all of us. It's not just one person
Yes.
going to make
I
this.
totally agree with you. And I just want to end on this note too, that the new archetypes that are coming through now, people are going to openly identify as hybrids. They're going to openly identify as starseeds. We're going to have entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs. All of these archetypes are going to shake up and make our world more holistic for folks like us who still have our gifts to share, but we're not going to hide who we are, who our true essence is. And that is the point of this
Yeah,
time.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you? Your website, your socials?
I have waited on a website because I just wanted to see how people reacted. I've got a YouTube account where I put everything up called OMU, OM with a little N and then U. Jacalyn S. Burke, you can find me. And I'm also on LinkedIn under my name. And I'm also on Facebook under OMU.
Okay.
So I can send you the links too, because it's a bit of a mouthful sometimes. But I
Okay.
can send you the links.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
any last words of wisdom or anything? One last final thing you want to share with the audience?
There are more of us than there are not of us now. We are coming together, we're finding each other. We are only going to get bigger and bigger as a demographic, and we're going to all begin to remember our galactic heritage, and we all have pieces of the puzzle. Not one person has all the answers. We're all here to help each other remember what we forgot to remember.
I love that. And so true. Fully resonate
Exactly
with
right.
that. Oh my gosh. Well, Jacalyn, it has been
Thank you.
truly a pleasure to have you on and with your mission. And before we got yeah, we know each other,
We
even
do.
though we just met. So,
We
you
do.
know, yeah. So, anyway, so for those of you watching and listening, as always, thank you so much for your time. And I'll see you next time on Connection to the Cosmos.
Thank
Aloha.
you.